The Carroll A Deering came home wrong. Not torn apart, not burned, not sunk. Wrong. Her sails were still standing in the wind. Her hull was still visible on Diamond Shoals. But the people who should have made noise inside that ship had become silence. No captain answered. No crew came up. No body washed into the story to explain it. 11 or 12 men were gone, depending on which historical account you follow. The boats were gone. Key papers and navigation equipment were gone. And before she grounded, someone reportedly hailed a lightship about lost anchors. But that voice did not sit cleanly as the captain's voice. This is not a missing ship story. The ship was found. The people were not. To get closer, we have to test 4 things: the sea, the missing boats, the strange voice, and the fake clue that sounded exactly like the answer everyone wanted. One of those clues explains pressure. One explains suspicion. One explains why people ran toward legend, and one still leaves an unresolved sting in the record. Could the place itself explain the mystery? First, place the ship somewhere real, because Diamond Shoals was already a trap. January 31st, 1921, Cape Hatteras. Shallow sandbars, hard surf, and a vessel visible enough to torment rescuers. The Deering was not a rumor on the horizon. She was there, and still unreachable. Heavy seas kept boarding parties away until February 4th. 4 days. 4 days for waves to rearrange loose evidence. 4 days for sand to grind the scene down. So the first truth is uncomfortable. Investigators never got the first version of the ship. They got the version the Atlantic allowed to survive. Diamond Shoals can explain the wreck. It cannot, by itself, explain the missing people. But an empty ship does not begin empty. It arrives that way. Before Diamond Shoals, there was a human chain. The Deering was a new 5-masted schooner from Bath, Maine, built near the end of the wooden sailing world, when old seamanship was still trying to survive inside a changing century. Her earlier master, Captain William Merritt, reportedly left the voyage because of illness. Willis Wormel, older and close to retirement, took command. That is not just paperwork. That is pressure changing hands. The ship went south, cleared from Rio de Janeiro, stopped at Bridgetown, Barbados, and headed toward the American coast. These were not ghosts in a legend yet. They were men close enough to home to imagine the next letter, the next meal ashore, the next night not spent listening to rigging strain in the dark. Later accounts place complaints and alleged threats in the Barbados background. Treat that as a temperature reading, not a verdict. When the Deering appears near Cape Lookout, the mystery is not blank. It already has fatigue, authority, distance from home, and trust stretched thin across a wet deck. Now ask the evidence question slowly. If a crew abandons a ship in panic, what do they take? The boats being gone says one thing: people may have tried to leave. The papers being gone says another: someone may have cared what the record would show. The instruments and chronometer being gone add a third: whoever left may have wanted direction, time, and control. Those clues do not all tell the same story, and that is the problem. Evacuation is one thing, stripping a ship's memory is another, and then the ordinary details make it hurt. Shipboard life interrupted. Routine still close enough to imagine. Did the crew expect to return? Did they leave fast? Did someone choose what mattered? Or did 4 days of sea and later handling make the record look cleaner than the truth? This is where the mystery stops being a checklist and starts feeling like an interrupted life. And then the case gives us the detail I could not stop thinking about. Before the ship was found empty, someone spoke for it. On January 29th, near Cape Lookout, a man aboard the Deering reportedly hailed the lightship. The message was practical: the schooner had lost her anchors, and the owners should be notified. On paper, that sounds almost calm. Trouble at sea, pass the word. But listen to what the caller was saying. If the hail was accurate, a large sailing vessel near dangerous shoals had lost its hold against the water. It had lost the thing that helps keep her from being pushed where the sea wants her to go. That is already danger. On January 30th, the steamer Lake Elon reportedly saw the Deering again, steering an odd course near Diamond Shoals. So the hail is not the last sighting. It is more unsettling than that. It is one of the last human traces from the ship before the silence. The question that keeps the Deering alive is this: was it a captain reporting trouble, or was it already a ship where command had changed hands? The witness detail makes that question darker. The speaker reportedly did not seem like one of the ship's officers. Men were said to be gathered on deck. This is where the mutiny theory gets tempting, and also where it gets dangerous. It is not a clean scene we can replay, but it is enough to make command feel unstable in the surviving wrecker. At sea, command is not ceremony, it is oxygen. In bad weather, near shoals, every order has to become action before fear starts writing its own orders. If the captain was in control, the Deering leans toward tragic emergency. If the captain was not in control, the same lost anchor message becomes something sharper. A warning message from a deck where authority may already have slipped. That is why this clue survives. It does not solve the case. It prevents the easy answer from closing it. So the case splits in two. In one version, the sea beat them. In the other, the trouble had already started on deck. Weather is the answer that almost lets everyone breathe. Rough seas, grounded ship, dangerous shoals. It sounds enough. It sounds merciful. Maybe the crew looked over the side and believed the ship was finished. Maybe they lowered boats because staying felt like waiting for the hull to break. Maybe fear made the wrong escape look like the only escape. But weather is not a decision maker. Weather creates pressure. People make the decision inside that pressure. Who gave the order? Who argued? Who looked at the breakers and thought, now, before it is too late? Here the case becomes painful. One Coast Guard account has been read to suggest the ship remained high enough that, had the crew stayed aboard, they might have survived. Think about that as tragedy, not blame. Weather is the strongest practical explanation. It explains pressure. It still does not explain the voice. Mutiny is the theory people reach for when weather feels too empty. Could conflict have turned a dangerous ship into a broken command? The story has reasons people ask. Wormel reportedly complained of crew trouble. Barbados accounts bring in alleged threats. The Cape Lookout voice did not sit neatly as an officer's voice. Put those pieces together and the mind starts building a scene. A captain losing authority. Men afraid or angry. A deck where the next order no longer belongs to one person. That is the dark pull of mutiny. It gives the silence a human pulse. But then the theory has to survive its own ending. Where did the mutineers go? Why no confession? Why no reliable survivor trail? Why would every person vanish into the same blank? Mutiny is the strongest suspicion explanation. It explains heat. It explains command feeling wrong. But as the full answer, it leaks. It gives us a motive-shaped shadow, not a destination. Then the story turns small, and somehow smaller is worse. What if the most painful clue is not a theory, but routine interrupted? A galley, a table, a cup. These details are fragile in retellings, so they cannot prove the ending. But they return the crew to human scale. Someone may have expected another order, another watch, another meal, another chance to be afraid and then survive it. That is the pain inside abandoned places. A table does not know the story has ended. A cup does not know nobody is coming back. The ordinary details do not solve the Deering. They make the loss harder to keep at a distance. Then the case produced exactly the kind of clue every mystery audience dreams of, a bottle note. It reportedly claimed pirates had attacked the Deering. For 1 second, the whole case seems to open. A villain, a witness, a message from the lost. And that was the problem. It was almost too perfect. The mind hates an unfinished shape. A villain feels cleaner than weather. And a conspiracy feels more satisfying than a bad decision made under pressure. That is why the bottle note is such a powerful trap. It gives the audience the emotion of an answer before the evidence earns one. Later investigators and many accounts treated it as a hoax. The false clue exposes the hunger around the case. People wanted pain to have a face. But the Deering does not give us that mercy. The fake note borrows the voice of people who cannot correct it. So the final ledger has to be honest. And honesty is less comfortable than legend. Confirmed, the Deering was found at Diamond Shoals. Sails set, no crew aboard. Documented in official and historical summaries. Lifeboats gone. Key navigational equipment and certain papers missing. More fragile in retellings, the exact state of meals, tables, cups, and ordinary spaces. Weather explains pressure. Mutiny explains suspicion. The bottle note explains our hunger for relief. None of them gives the crew back. The least invented answer is tragic abandonment under pressure, a dangerous shoal, a reported lost anchor warning, bad seas, missing boats, command strain, and people who may have made one survival decision too early. The unresolved trouble is the voice. If command was normal, this is likely tragedy under pressure. If command was already confused, the tragedy has a darker edge. The Deering stayed behind like evidence while every person aboard was taken out of reach. So which clue changes the case for you? The boats, the papers, the verbal hail, or the weather?